Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Me's My Past, your YouTube's premier channel about all things women's football, and I would like to welcome you all today to the inaugural episode of Top 5. This is going to be a series of videos where I take one match from each of the top 5 divisions in Europe for women's football and pretty much just break down what happened in those matches and just make it serve as an advertisement not only for the teams that I'll be featuring in the series of videos, but also the leagues in general, so that you can see and also get a taste of the kind of quality of football that is available across the top 5 divisions, which are of course the Women's Super League in England, the Frauen Bundesliga in Germany, Division A in France, Serie A in Italy, and last but not least La Liga Femenino in good old Spain. So without further ado, let's get cracking into the top 5 for this week, and we start off in England where we had a cracking match between Chelsea and Manchester City. Now Manchester City were the team playing at home here, and they lined up in a 4-3-3 formation, and Chelsea lined up in a 4-2-3-1 formation here. And with the early proceedings, it was Man City in the driver's seat here who were looking for the opener here, but unfortunately they were stopped by the exploits of Millie Bright and Musovic here, who, if you were paying attention to her exploits at the World Cup for Sweden, you know that she's not an easy keeper to pass, and it shows because just last season she was sitting on the bench for Berger, and now she is the starting player for Chelsea here, and is well deserved in my opinion. And unfortunately, despite Musovic's best attempts, it will take until the 6th minute where the deadlock will be broken thanks to a worldie of a goal scored by Chloe Kelly here, and Manchester City had the early lead going on here. And all the way up until the 26th minute, there was a lot of sustained pressure from Chelsea, who were looking to claw themselves back into the game before the second half, and they somehow got a little bit of a blessing in disguise, as in the 37th minute, the most controversial talking point of this entire match that pretty much blew up the whole world of women's football, at least from the English perspective, was the second yellow card that came to Alex Greenwood after she took too long to resume play after there was a stoppage. Now, a lot of pundits and media personalities like Ian Wright have come out to say that the ref's decision here was very wrong. Personally, I timed this little incident and it came up to 14.54 seconds, and that is a little bit too long in my opinion. I guess maybe it's too much of watching men's football, but that's not an excuse really. I do think that in this kind of a situation, as much as there have been new regulations introduced to clamp down on time wasting, there is no concrete rule that declares that a certain amount of time needs to pass in order for it to be considered to be time wasting here. So it's pretty much up to the referee's discretion to determine whether or not a player has been time wasting here. It is an unfortunate situation, particularly for the referees. I know referees get a lot of slack for their officiating reasons, and particularly in the Premier League, and it's really justified for the most part, but in this kind of a situation with the whole time wasting debacle, I think there needs to be a concrete rule introduced to say maybe if it takes 20-25 seconds to restart a play or restart the game, then you can card a player, because if you really try to be hard and fast with that kind of a situation, it never ends well. As a referee, you don't get any protection because they say that surely not, it's just a couple of seconds, you can allow a couple of seconds, you know. And it's, again, the referee's discretion is very different. There's going to be one referee who says 15 seconds is too much, there's going to be one referee who says 8 seconds is too much, you know. If you watch the men's Premier League, there was a game between Arsenal and Crystal Palace that happened early on. Tomiyasu got sent off. Well, he got a yellow card for time wasting, which essentially led to him being sent off after he was about to resume play, and that only took like what, 8 to 9 seconds. So there really needs to be a very concrete rule introduced to say a certain amount of time needs to pass before it is considered time wasting. But going back into the game here, I've rambled enough about that incident. There was pretty much not much to write home about going into the second half here, as Man City managed to hold on very well to their narrow lead in spite of them being 10 players down here. But going into the second half, Chelsea pretty much came probing here. Man City were sitting back and they were very well organized in defense, I have to admit that, especially young Kiara Keating. She is pretty much the heir to Mary Earps' throne here. She did not put a foot wrong throughout the entire game, and when her defenders would be beaten, she would be there to make sure that nothing was gonna go awry. Sorry, not awry. Nothing would go awry, and she pretty much made sure that the team would stay in the game throughout the whole way, even when they went down to 9 players. And this happened in the 80th minute when a second yellow for Lauren Hemp came after she brought down Lauren James, the better James in my opinion, who was on the attack trying to get Chelsea back on level terms here. And City were essentially down to 9 players here, and it was going to be a tough task for them to hold out until the very end of the game. And for a moment, it seems like it was going to be that way until the 95th minute, where Guro Reiten would pounce onto a loose ball after a corner set piece and draw Chelsea level with Manchester City, which is where the game would officially end here. It would end 1-1 with both teams sharing the points here, and a new record being set with 11 yellow cards in total being dished out by the referee here, which of course resulted in 2 red cards. And just for fun, Gareth Taylor, the coach for Manchester City, received his own yellow card for his complaining of the whole situation, which, I mean, you get what you give. You know it was coming your way. But anyway, it was a very good match in my opinion. It was well worth the time if you want to watch a replay. It was highly entertaining from top to bottom. There was a great turnout by the crowd. It looked sold out from what I could see, and the support was just tremendous. It just shows the trajectory of where women's football is going, and it's definitely going to be something fun to look forward to the next couple of years, to see if the women's teams are going to be playing more regularly at bigger stadiums. Of course, with Manchester City at the Etihad and Chelsea at the Stamford Bridge Stadium there. So here's to hoping. Up next, we go to France, the land of wine, bread, and bedbugs, where we had Olympique Lyonnais taking on Bordeaux, with Olympique Lyonnais playing at home and lining up in a 4-3-3 formation, and the same with Bordeaux, also lining up in a 4-3-3 formation. And pretty much when you saw the teams coming out, you knew it was going to be a foregone conclusion that Lyon were going to win. But this match was highly entertaining. If you're not going to watch it for any other reason, it's simply just to see just how good Olympique Lyonnais are. And particular credit has to go to Melchi Dumone. Someone needs to stop this child. She has no right to be as good as she is, but she pretty much has the entire world at her feet. The world's gonna be eating out her palm. She is literally the best thing to come out of Haiti in my opinion, because wow, just wow. There is absolutely nothing she can't do from an attacking standpoint, and even when it comes to her out of position play, she is so good. She's so good at pressing the back line, causing so much chaos and havoc, and I'm shocked that all the big teams across Europe and in the world for women's football completely slept on Dumone and Lyon snapped her up, because Lyon already, as they are an OP team, and adding Dumone to their ranks is just whew, wow. And it showed in this match. She pretty much opened up the scoring, where she pounced onto a loose ball after an Iguarola attempt from range that hit the bar, and it was pretty much open gates from there on, because just 2 minutes later, Kadidiatou Diani, in her third match for Olympique Lyonnais, scored her first goal for the club here as she rose the highs from a corner set piece. And Jennifer Marochan, the German legend, she would try a bicycle volley attempt towards the end of the first half, but nothing would come of it. But eventually Lyon would just wrap the game up in the 76th minute, where Ada Hegerberg would score coming off the bench. And of course, Melchi Dumone was there again, but this time, because she was such a nuisance for the Bordeaux defense, she was brought down in the box, and Lyon got a penalty which was promptly dispatched by their captain, Wendy Renard. And it was pretty much just an entertaining match. If you're going to watch this match, it's for the pure entertainment factor. See the standard that Lyon are operating at. I think this is a standard that so many women's teams need to follow. And of course, just watch Melchi Dumone. She is crazy and insanely talented for someone who's just, I think, like 19 years old. The world is literally at her feet, especially when you consider that women's footballers tend to play for much longer than men's footballers. And given the advancements in the game in general, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Melchi Dumone playing until her late 30s at such a top level. She is an imperious and an incredible talent. Up next, we move on to Italy here in Serie A. And just before we go to the match of the week, just want to give a special shout out to the match between Juventus and AC Milan here. This was a very entertaining and a belter of a match, and I think you should definitely go out of your way to watch it. If not the whole thing, then maybe just the highlights here. But the match of the week that I have chosen personally is going to be Sassuolo versus Inter Milan, with Sassuolo lining up in a 3-5-2 formation and Inter Milan lining up in a 4-3-3 formation here. And this match was a very much an even Stevens match, and neither team would really budge for the other here. And going into the first half, just looking at the play in general, they were refusing to give each other a single inch of the game here. Highly transitional, and it pretty much took a penalty in the 52nd minute that Sassuolo conceded for the deadlock to be finally broken by Bonfantini, who tucked away the penalty. And it seemed that the game was gonna move away from being highly transitional. Maybe Sassuolo would sit back, or it would be Inter who would be the ones who sat back and defended their lead. And pretty much that's what happened. The latter is what happened. Inter were sitting back. Sassuolo had so many good chances to finally bring themselves level, but unfortunately they were caught out in the 74th minute by Cartruni, who had a very good effort in a congested box that ricocheted off the post into the net. Pretty much a stroke of luck here to give Inter the double lead here, and it pretty much seemed that it was going to be 3 points to Inter Milan, and it did end up being that way. Of course, there was a consolation goal scored in the 77th minute by the player for Sassuolo, Nagy. No, not that one from Blue Lock. She pretty much repeated the same trick by Cartruni here, pretty much bell for bell, like for like, bar for bar, if you like Soldier Boy. And she scored the consolation for Sassuolo, but unfortunately, Inter Milan were the ones who ran out victorious over the home team Sassuolo. The penultimate top 5 match of the week goes to Eintracht Frankfurt versus RB Leipzig in the Frauen Bundesliga. Eintracht Frankfurt were the team at home who line up in a 4-2-3 formation. RB Leipzig were the team who are playing away, and they line up in a 5-4-1 formation here. And essentially, what was being expected from this game was an easy victory for Eintracht Frankfurt. And when you look at the overall scoreline at the end of the game, you'd think it was an easy victory. But watching the match, you will know that RB Leipzig did their best to give themselves a good account of themselves, especially in the first half here, where they were dominating Frankfurt all over the pitch, whether it was an attack or defense or even in the middle of the park. And eventually, their exploits would finally break dividends, as in the 26th minute Leipzig would get their well-deserved goal after Mullers would set off Andrade, who tucked in very neatly into the bottom of the post, and to give RB Leipzig the first goal of the game here. But unfortunately, it suddenly seemed that off the back of this goal, Leipzig suddenly forgot how to attack, because they literally just began to sit back and defend this narrow lead. And I do get that in this kind of a matchup, you are the underdogs, but from such a situation, the better thing to do is, rather than try to ride out the rest of the game, especially so early on in the first half, you should try at least just keep the ball in your opponent's half. But Leipzig did absolutely none of that, and Frankfurt pretty much were just dominating for the rest of the half, and it was pretty much the same thing going into the second half. And even though I will give Leipzig credit for doing their best to finally start to attack in the second half, it was too little too late, as finally in the 70th minute, Eintracht Frankfurt would draw themselves level after Dunst would connect from a beautiful cross by Reuteler and give Eintracht Frankfurt the first goal of the game for themselves. And pretty much from this point forward, the floodgates just opened for Frankfurt here. As in the 84th minute, Dunst would be brought down in the box here for a penalty to Frankfurt, which would be promptly dispatched by Fregang, I hope I pronounced that correctly, to give Eintracht Frankfurt the lead for the first time in this match. And despite RB Leipzig's best attempt to just hang in there and try and get themselves a consolation goal to share the points, it would be all for naught, as in the 92nd minute, Wamsa would go through on goal completely unmarked, dribble past the RB Leipzig keeper, and score the third and final goal for Frankfurt to seal the points for Eintracht Frankfurt here. And RB Leipzig, I think they did give themselves a good account of how they can play, but I think they gave up a little bit too quickly and too easily. They were pretty much got run off the park in the second half, and pretty much the class of Eintracht Frankfurt really did show itself against RB Leipzig. And I think there's definitely a lot to be learned from this match for the losers here, and hopefully in their next game they can definitely do well to bring themselves back up, especially after what was an initially promising first half. And finally, we end with La Liga Femenino, where we had Atletico Madrid taking on Sevilla here. Atletico Madrid were the team that were at home, and they landed up in a 4-2-3 formation, and Sevilla landed up in a 4-2-3-1 formation. And Atletico were definitely the stronger team and the more confident of the two here, as they had two very early chances that narrowly went wide, and Sevilla pretty much were on the defensive throughout the entirety of the game, especially after these two chances had been presented. And it would seem that Sevilla were going to be just attempting to just absorb the pressure that was coming from Atleti and launch a counter-attack as soon and as quick as possible, but it did not pay the dividends, unlike for Atletico, who they did the same thing, and their new signing, Ana Maria Sagozovic, would set up Santos, who put away the first goal of the game and give Atletico Madrid the lead here. And going into the second half, it would take super sub Tony Payne of Nigeria to launch a solo charge against Atletico Madrid to score for Sevilla and bring them back up to level terms. And it would seem that for the rest of the game, it would be 1-1 here, especially as Sevilla grew in confidence as the game continued on, and Atletico were having to deal with the highly transitional nature that the game had eventually evolved into here. But luckily, in the 71st minute, an incomplete cross from Cardona would be picked up by Santos again, who left her marker behind and scored the second goal for Atletico Madrid, grabbing herself a brace and ultimately grabbing the victory here for Atletico Madrid against Sevilla. I think that in this match there was a lot to write home about for both teams. For Atletico Madrid, it seems like they are trying to get themselves to a rhythmic level, especially with their new signings, and it seems to be going very well. As for Sevilla, it does look like they are lacking either confidence or a proper attacking threat, especially from a central point of view that can really help them to put away chances, especially when they're initiating or deploying, in this matter, a counter-attacking procedure against their opposition. So definitely a lot to learn from for both of these teams. And those are the matches from the top 5 leagues that I think you should definitely go out of your way to watch. Again, even if it's not the whole match, at least some highlights, because I think they are very entertaining. Obviously, there was a lot of drama, controversy, and a lot of entertainment as well across these top 5 divisions, and I do think that they are highly representative of what their respective leagues have to offer, and I do think you will enjoy each and every one of these matches. If not all of them, then at least one, in my opinion. Maybe Manchester City or Chelsea, or Olympique Lyonnais versus Bordeaux. But anyway, what were your top 5 matches? What are the matches that you watched this weekend? If you watched any, please make sure to leave your comments in the comment section, of course, and any other matches that you would recommend that either I should watch or other people come across your comments should watch from this week in the league systems. Today, at the time of this recording, there is some Champions League action. We have PSG going up against Manchester United, and that promises to definitely be a mouth-watering affair. And there will be some other Champions League matches on offer again today as well, which we definitely might, well, most likely, will cover in a future video. But other than that, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.